Vince McMahon has undergone life-altering surgery, but first, LA Knight has been added to WWE SummerSlam. On last night's episode of SmackDown, WWE would confirm that there would be a SummerSlam Battle Royal next weekend, which will be presented by Slim Jim. The announcement would then lead into a backstage segment involving authority figure Adam Pearce and the popular LA Knight, who would declare his interest in taking part in the match. They would then be interrupted by Sheamus, who would mock Knight's catchphrase before telling him that it would take more than being good at promos to win the Battle Royal. Pearce would then confirm that both men will compete in the match at SummerSlam and that they will also meet next week in singles action on the final SmackDown before the big event on August 5th. Earlier in the night, LA Knight was able to pick up a win over Ashante the Adonis of Hit Row, with fans now hoping that the SummerSlam Battle Royal will lead to WWE finally putting the rocket behind the extremely over superstar. Next up, has the real reason for this AEW absence been revealed? And before we find out what happened at the end of SmackDown, let's jump across to All Elite Wrestling, a promotion that's seen a distinct lack of Wardlow over recent weeks. The resident War Dog hasn't been seen on AEW television since the debut episode of Collision, where he would drop the TNT Championship to Luchasaurus. When discussing the situation on last night's Fightful Select Q&A session, Sean Ross Sapp would note that Wardlow's absence appears to be linked to passport issues. This after recently having his car broken into and his bag stolen, and Sapp would say, "I was told there was an issue with somebody recently that couldn't get into Canada because of a passport thing, but I wasn't told who. I do know that Wardlow had his taken out of his car when it got broken into." Whilst this doesn't confirm that the passport issue is the reason for Wardlow's absence, the two stories do seem to line up. It'll be interesting to see if this potential issue will stop him from appearing at AEW All in London at Wembley Stadium as well. All Elite Wrestling are now back on United States soil following their recent tour of Canada, meaning we could be closer to seeing Wardlow back on screens in the near future, and whilst he could be absent from the London show, perhaps he'll be present at All Out the following week. Next up, a former WWE champion has been injured. Elsewhere on SmackDown last night, Rey Mysterio would find himself across the ring from fellow luchador Santos Escobar with a shot at US champion Austin Theory on the line. This as the United States Championship Invitational came to a close. During the match, Santos Escobar would hit a dive through the middle ropes onto his opponent. However, Rey would fall back and hit his head hard on the floor, seemingly knocking him out cold. It was then announced that the match had been called off, with Escobar being awarded the victory via a referee stoppage. Whilst WRKD Wrestling have reported that the injury is part of a storyline, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful would take to Twitter to reveal otherwise, and he would tweet, "After speaking with additional sources, we've learnt the Mysterio injury was not storyline as originally suggested. Santos Escobar was scheduled to go over clean, and there was to be a backstage segment follow-up that got nixed. We're wishing Rey Mysterio a speedy recovery." We now wait to find out the significance of the injury and if Mysterio will miss any time due to the knock, although due to it being a head injury, he will likely be out as a precaution. As for Escobar, he will now meet Austin Theory in 2 weeks' time on August 11th, with the WWE United States Championship on the line. And just quickly before we continue, be sure to check out my latest video, 10 Facts MJF Doesn't Want You to Know, something I've been working on for many months at this point. In the video, we pose the question of who is the real Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and is the persona we see the real him? I guarantee you'll learn a whole bunch of things about the man that claims to be better than you, just don't tell him I told you so. And next, what happened when Roman Reigns and Jey Uso came face to face? For our final story from last night's episode of SmackDown, let's take a look at the closing segment of the night, where Undisputed Universal Championship #1 contender Jey Uso went one-on-one with Grayson Waller, this after the two were involved in a backstage ruckus earlier in the night. Sat at ringside would be Uso's opponent for next weekend, Roman Reigns, who was flanked by wise man Paul Heyman and Jey's younger brother Solo Sikoa. In the end, Uso would manage to put Waller away with a spear from Roman's playbook, as well as an Uso splash for the 1-2-3. This would then lead to Solo hitting the ring to attempt to take Uso out with a Samoan spike, which was reversed into a super kick which took the enforcer down. Roman Reigns would then slide in before Jey ducked him, dropping the tribal chief with another spear before going up top for an Uso splash. He would then be cut off by Sikoa, which led to a huge beatdown from both remaining members of the Bloodline, with two spike spears wiping the challenger out just 1 week before the big main event clash at SummerSlam. Of course, next weekend, Jey Uso and Roman Reigns will go head-to-head with the undisputed WWE Universal Championship and the title of Tribal Chief on the line, with the advantage seemingly on the side of the head of the table, with Jimmy Uso still out of action. Next up, a huge title match has been added to AEW Dynamite 200. SmackDown wasn't the only show that went down last night, as AEW would air the latest episode of Rampage, a show that would see two former women's world champions go one-on-one. Hikaru Shida would manage to pick up a win over Nyla Rose before suggesting that she was looking to win championship gold, this before AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm came out, flanked by fellow outcasts Ruby Soho and Saraya. It was then confirmed that Toni will put her title on the line against Shida this coming Wednesday on the 200th episode of AEW Dynamite. It was also confirmed that new ROH World Tag Team Champions Aussie Open would defend their belts against Lucha Duo Commander and AAA Mega Champion El Hijo del Vikingo on Wednesday night. This wasn't the only tag team related news that came from the show, however, as Big Bill and Brian Cage would win last night's Tag Team Battle Royal, earning themselves a future shot at the AEW World Tag Team Championships, with them set to face the winners of tonight's FTR versus Adam Cole and MJF match somewhere down the line. And next up, a major WWE superstar is set to return to boxing. Prior to signing with WWE in June 2022, Logan Paul would make a name for himself in crossover boxing, with him battling fellow social media star and now Prime Energy business partner KSI twice, as well as multi-time world champion Floyd Mayweather, with him yet to add a win to his 1 draw and 2 losses. Last night, Paul's latest boxing bout would be announced, this when KSI took to Twitter to say, "The Prime card is here. We will both fight on the same night for the first time since our rematch in 2019 live on DAZN pay-per-view. Opponents will be announced soon, October 14, AO Arena, Manchester." Whilst it hasn't been confirmed, MMA fighter Dylan Dennis is the rumoured opponent for Logan Paul, whilst Tommy Fury is said to be facing KSI on the night. Due to the training camp that he will need to undergo, we will likely not see Logan back on WWE television until the new year, perhaps in Royal Rumble and WrestleMania season. With that said, he will be competing next weekend at SummerSlam, where he takes on Ricochet in singles action. And next, we have an update on reported issues in the AEW women's locker room. On last night's news video, we would discuss a tweet from independent wrestling veteran Lou Fisto, who described her experience when working at an All Elite Wrestling television taping last April. Lou would claim that the issues with the women's division in general are rooted in talent with too much power, talent denigrating each other, talent trash-talking potential employees, and specifically mentioning an incident where unnamed talent called her an effing French-Canadian atoll. Since then, Sean Ross Sapp has revealed what he's heard about the Lufisto incident, with him taking to last night's Fightful Select Q&A to say, "Yes, there is truth to it. There is somebody that tried to hold her, Lufisto, down, that talked trash about her. There's a lot of trash talking within that locker room. It's something I've constantly heard about over the last couple of years. I can't point fingers and say who. A lot of people pointed the finger at Britt Baker and said, you talked trash about Thunder Rosa. Listen, there's a lot of it that goes on there. I will say this about Britt. Britt experienced some stuff that nobody should ever have to go through, and I understand why she's got her guard up in that sense. But the Lufisto thing, Lufisto, among people that worked with her and have worked with her, she just holds some of the highest respect." Sean would then reveal the original plan was for Lufisto to come in as a coach in AEW, plans that quickly changed, and he would add, "There was a not so good situation that I am of the belief emerged from a ton of miscommunication that didn't help her out when she came in there, because it was supposed to be for a lot more than what she was brought in and ended up doing. At least as it was relayed to me and relayed to her, and I mean this from the April show last year where she worked Dark Elevation. She worked like a 3-minute 6-woman tag. There had been people that I talked to that claimed they were going to be looking at her as a potential coach, and then when I followed up and said, oh, what happened there? They're like, I don't know. And then I was told no meeting happened, anything like that. There is yet to be an official response from anybody within AEW over Lufisto's comments. However, it'll be interesting to see if this is something that is brought up at a future press conference or media scrum for official comments in the weeks ahead. And next, a current WWE champion has hit an impressive milestone. In June 2022, Gunther would become the WWE Intercontinental Champion, this following a win over Ricochet on an episode of SmackDown, with him still holding the title 414 days later. WWE would today tweet out a graphic that reveals that Gunther's run with the belt has now surpassed Randy Savage's 413-day reign that spanned the majority of 1986, meaning the Austrian is now the third longest IC champion of all time. According to the graphic, this leaves him just 10 days behind the 424-day reign of Pedro Morales, and 39 days short of the all-time record held by the Honky Tonk Man at 453 days, a record that has existed since 1988. In order for Gunther to break the all-time record, he will need to hold onto the belt until September 7th, which is 5 days after the upcoming Payback Premium Live event. With that said, he must first get past Drew McIntyre next weekend at SummerSlam, with the Scottish psychopath looking to stop Gunther in his tracks to making history. Next up, Vince McMahon has undergone life-altering surgery. It's been quite the year for WWE chairman Vince McMahon, who was forced to resign from the company following a sexual misconduct and hush money scandal, this before he ultimately returned to secure a sale of WWE to the Endeavor Group, securing himself a spot on the board in the process. Last night, news would break via TMZ that Vince McMahon recently required surgery to his spine, although the exact details of the issue are unknown, and the report notes, Vince McMahon underwent major surgery last week to fix an issue with his spine, TMZ Sports has learned. Sources close to the WWE honcho tell us the procedure lasted over 4 hours. It was, however, deemed a success, and the 77-year-old is now recovering. There would be a follow-up report from Fightful Select, who would reveal what they know about the situation, revealing that the surgery was described to them as a major life-altering operation, and Fightful would write, "We've confirmed with WWE sources that the surgery took place last week, which kept him from doing any work on SmackDown or Raw after. Overall, the surgery is said to have been near 5 hours long, and those close to him claim that it was a major life-altering operation, as it would be for anyone who underwent it." When inquiring, Fightful were not given any direct answer as to how the surgery will affect Vince's work going forward, and noted that several talent had no idea about the story until it was made public. It's also unclear exactly what life-altering means in this scenario, although it doesn't sound like positive news for the WWE chairman's physical health. And before you go, make sure you check out 10 facts that MJF doesn't want you to know.